The wine glass trembled in my hand as David's words hung in the air between us. We'd been married for 7 years, together for 10, and I thought I knew every corner of his mind. But tonight, something had shifted. "It's just a fantasy, Maya," he said, his voice oddly casual as he scrolled through his phone. "Everyone has them. It doesn't mean anything." My throat tightened. "A fantasy about Rachel? Your coworker Rachel?" He finally looked up, his hazel eyes meeting mine with what seemed like genuine confusion at my reaction. "I'm being honest with you. Isn't that what we always said we'd do? Complete transparency." I set down my glass before I could drop it. We were sitting in our living room, the same space where we'd celebrated anniversaries, hosted friends, built a life. The fairy lights I'd strung across the bookshelf last Christmas now felt like they were mocking me with their cheerful glow. "Transparency is one thing," I said, my voice shakier than I wanted. "But telling me you fantasize about another woman. Would you prefer I lie?" David interrupted, standing up and moving toward the kitchen. I thought we were past playing games. That night, I lay awake while he slept soundly beside me, his breathing deep and even. How could he be so calm? I stared at the ceiling, replaying every interaction I'd witnessed between him and Rachel at the company holiday party. She was beautiful, tall, with dark hair and an easy laugh. They'd seemed friendly, but nothing more. At least, that's what I'd thought. The next morning, David kissed my forehead before leaving for work, the same gesture he'd made 1,000 times before. But now it felt hollow. "Love you," he murmured against my skin. I couldn't make myself say it back. Over the following days, I watched him more carefully. He came home later than usual on Tuesday, almost an hour past his normal time. Traffic was insane, he explained, loosening his tie. Thursday, it was a meeting that ran long. Friday, he'd stopped to help someone at work with their computer. Each excuse was perfectly reasonable. Each one made my stomach twist tighter. I tried to push away the suspicion. This was David, my David, who brought me coffee in bed on Sundays, who knew I liked the left side of the couch, who held me through my father's funeral. He wouldn't actually act on a fantasy, would he? But Sunday night, when he showered immediately after coming home from the gym, I noticed he'd already showered before leaving. The gym bag sat unused by the door. That's when I made my decision. Monday morning, I found myself in a cramped office across town, sitting across from a woman named Jennifer Torres, licensed private investigator. Jennifer Torres had kind eyes, but a no-nonsense demeanor that put me slightly at ease. Her office was small but professional, with framed certifications on the wall and a neat desk that suggested someone who took their work seriously. "Most of my clients are in your exact situation," she said, sliding a contract across the desk. "Spouse acting different, gut telling them something's wrong. Sometimes that gut is right. Sometimes it's just anxiety. Either way, you deserve to know the truth." I signed the papers with a hand that wouldn't stop shaking. "How does this work?" "I'll follow your husband for 7 days, document his movements, take photos where appropriate. I'll send you daily reports." She paused, her expression softening. "Mrs. Chun, please, just Maya. Maya, I need you to prepare yourself. Whatever I find, it's going to be hard to see. Even if it's innocent, knowing you felt the need to hire me means there's already a crack in the foundation." I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. That evening, David came home at his usual time. I watched him hang his coat, kick off his shoes, and smile at me as he walked into the kitchen. "How was your day?" he asked, the same question he always asked. "Fine." I lied, the same lie I'd been telling all week. "Yours?" "Exhausting. Johnson is riding everyone hard about the quarterly reports." He opened the fridge, pulled out leftovers. "I might have to work late tomorrow." My heart sank. "How late?" "Not sure yet. Don't wait up if it's past 9. I forced a smile and watched him heat up his dinner, this man I'd loved for a decade, wondering if I knew him at all. The first 3 days of Jennifer's reports were mundane. David went to work, attended meetings, ate lunch at his desk or occasionally with colleagues, including Rachel, though never alone. He went to the gym Tuesday evening, actually worked out for 45 minutes, then drove straight home. By Thursday, I was starting to feel foolish. I'd wasted money, indulged paranoia, let one careless comment poison my trust. Maybe I should call off the investigation. Then Friday's report arrived. Subject left work at 5:47 p.m. Jennifer's email read, "Drove to Oakmont Apartments on the east side. approximately 30 minutes from his workplace and 45 minutes from your residence. Entered Building 7C at 6:23 p.m. Still inside as of 9:15 p.m. when I ended surveillance. I stared at my phone, reading the words over and over. Attached were photos, David's car in the parking lot, David walking toward the building entrance, his jacket slung over his shoulder, David glancing around before going inside, an action that looked furtive in the frozen image. I felt like I was going to be sick. I barely slept that night. David had come home at 10:30, apologizing for the late night, explaining about a problem with the servers that required all hands on deck. I nodded, pretended to believe him, and retreated to the bathroom, where I silently cried into a towel. When I finally fell into fitful sleep, I dreamed of Rachel's laugh, of David's hands on someone else, of my marriage crumbling like sand between my fingers. Saturday morning, David suggested we go out for breakfast, our usual weekend ritual. I made an excuse about feeling unwell, watched him frown with concern, felt his hand on my forehead checking for fever. The tenderness of the gesture made everything worse. "I'll stay home with you," he offered. "No, you have that thing." I scrambled to remember his plans. "The hardware store, for the deck repair. That can wait." "Please," I said, more sharply than intended. "I just want to sleep." After he left, I called Jennifer. "I need to know about that apartment. Who lives there?" "I'm already on it," she replied. The directory listed it under E. Morrison. I ran the name. Emily Morrison, 29, works at Grayson and Associates. She paused. "That's your husband's company." My hands went cold. "Rachel works there too. Could it be? I'll find out more. But Maya, I need you to prepare yourself for what comes next. Would you like me to continue surveillance?" "Yes," I whispered. "I need to know everything." Sunday evening, David received a text while we were watching a movie. His phone was face up on the coffee table, and I saw the name. Emily. "Need to step outside for a work call," he said, already standing. I watched him through the window, pacing in the driveway, his free hand gesturing as he spoke. The conversation lasted 15 minutes. When he came back in, his expression was troubled. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah, just a colleague dealing with some personal issues. Nothing major." He settled back on the couch, pulling me against him. "Where were we?" I let him hold me, this stranger wearing my husband's face, and wondered how many other lies he'd told. Monday's report shattered what remained of my composure. Subject visited the same apartment complex at 6:45 p.m., Jennifer wrote. Stayed until 11:20 p.m. I managed to get into the building and confirm apartment 7C belongs to Emily Morrison. Cross-reference social media. She matches the description of a woman who works in your husband's department. Attached are photos from her public Instagram profile. I clicked the attachment with trembling hands. Emily Morrison was pretty in an understated way. Blonde hair, warm smile, photos of hiking trips and coffee shops. One recent photo showed her at what looked like a company event. In the background, barely visible, was David. The caption read, "Great team. Couldn't do it without these amazing people." Had I seen her before? Had David mentioned her name? I couldn't remember, couldn't think past the roaring in my ears. That evening, David came home at his normal time. "Hey, beautiful," he said, kissing my cheek. I pulled away. "We need to talk." His expression shifted, something guarded entering his eyes. "About what?" "About where you've really been going after work." The color drained from David's face. For a long moment, he just stood there in our entryway, his briefcase still in his hand, frozen like a photograph. "Maya, I can explain." "Can you?" My voice was surprisingly steady despite the tremor in my hands. "Because I'd love to hear the explanation for why you've been spending your evenings at Emily Morrison's apartment." He closed his eyes, his jaw working. "How did you? Does it matter?" I cut him off. "You've been lying to me." "For how long, David? How long has this been going on?" "It's not what you think." He set down his briefcase, reached for me. I stepped back. "Maya, please. Just let me explain." "Then explain. Explain why you told me you fantasize about Rachel, and then I find out you're secretly visiting a completely different coworker at her apartment for hours at a time." My voice cracked. "Explain how I'm supposed to believe anything you say." David ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I'd seen 1,000 times when he was stressed. "I mentioned Rachel because I thought if I was honest about stupid, meaningless thoughts, you'd trust me more. I never acted on it." "But Emily," he shook his head. That's different. That's completely different. Different how? Different because you're actually sleeping with her? No. His voice rose. God, no. Maya, I'm not cheating on you. I would never. Then what? I was shouting now, years of trust and love and faith cracking open. What could possibly require secret meetings at her apartment until almost midnight? What could be so important that you'd lie to me day after day? David's shoulders slumped. He looked suddenly older, exhausted. Emily's brother was in a car accident 3 months ago. He's paralyzed from the waist down, going through intensive physical therapy. Her parents live overseas. Her mom's sick, can't travel. Emily's been trying to handle everything alone, and she was falling apart. I stared at him, trying to process the words. What does that have to do with you? She asked for my help. She was embarrassed, didn't want anyone at work to know what she was going through, didn't want the pity or the gossip. He met my eyes, his own pleading. I've been helping her navigate insurance claims, medical paperwork, disability applications. My cousin went through something similar. I knew the system. I thought I was doing the right thing. By lying to me, I wasn't supposed to tell anyone. She made me promise. He took a cautious step toward me. I know how it looks. I know I should have told you anyway, but what? You thought I'd what exactly? Be jealous of a woman dealing with a family tragedy? Think you couldn't help someone without ulterior motives? David's face crumpled. I don't know. Maybe I liked feeling needed. Maybe it was easier to keep it separate from our life. Maybe I'm an idiot who made everything worse by trying to respect someone's privacy. I sank onto the couch, my legs no longer able to hold me. I hired a private investigator. I know, David said quietly. Emily told me tonight that she saw someone watching the building. That's why I looked so worried when I came home last night. You knew I was having you followed, and you still lied this morning? I was going to tell you everything today. I just needed to talk to Emily first, make sure she was okay with me sharing her situation. He sat down on the opposite end of the couch, maintaining distance. I have texts, emails, documents. You can see everything. The insurance forms I helped fill out, the lawyer consultations I set up, the medical equipment I researched. Maya, I swear to you, there's nothing romantic between us. With shaking hands, he pulled out his phone and began scrolling through messages. I watched the screen fill with conversations about wheelchair accessibility, therapy schedules, financial assistance programs. There were photos of forms, links to medical resources, research about spinal cord injuries. Then he opened a message thread that made my breath catch. It was from Emily, dated just 2 days ago. I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done. You've been like a brother when I needed one most. I know I asked you to keep this private, but maybe it's time to tell your wife. I hate being the reason for any tension in your marriage. What you and I have is just friendship, and she deserves to know that. David had responded. Let me find the right time. Maya's been through a lot this year. I don't want her to think I'm keeping secrets. I read the messages again, then a third time. The timeline aligned with everything Jennifer had documented. The tone was warm, but entirely platonic. Why didn't you just tell me from the beginning? My voice came out as a whisper. Because I'm an idiot. David's eyes were red. Because I thought I was protecting Emily's privacy. Because somewhere along the way, I started to like having this separate thing, this place where I felt useful and needed in a different way than I am at home. Not better, just different. And that scared me. So the fantasy about Rachel was exactly what I said, a stupid, meaningless thought that I never would have acted on. I brought it up because I read some article about honesty in marriage and thought I was being evolved and mature. He laughed bitterly. Instead, I just made you paranoid and suspicious. I looked at my husband, really looked at him. 7 years of marriage, 10 years together. I knew the way he bit his lip when concentrating, the scar on his left eyebrow from a childhood fall, the exact shade of green his eyes turned in morning light. I knew he sang off-key in the shower and alphabetized the spices and cried at videos of soldiers coming home to their dogs. But I hadn't known he was capable of keeping this kind of secret, even one with innocent intentions. I need you to meet Emily, I said finally. David blinked. What? If this is real, if everything you're saying is true, I need to meet her. I need to hear it from her. 2 days later, I sat in a coffee shop across from Emily Morrison. She was smaller in person than in her photos, with tired eyes and hands that fidgeted with her cup. I'm so sorry, she said before I could speak. I never meant to cause problems in your marriage. David's been a lifesaver, truly, but not in any way that should threaten what you have together. We talked for an hour. She showed me photos of her brother, explained the accident, described the overwhelming maze of medical bureaucracy she'd been drowning in. She showed me her own texts with David, all business and gratitude. He talks about you constantly, Emily said. How you're the smartest person he knows, how you laugh at his terrible jokes, how you make him want to be better. The first time I met him at a team meeting, he worked you into the conversation within 5 minutes. He's completely devoted to you. When I got home, David was in the kitchen, making dinner. Our kitchen, our home, our life. I believe you, I said. He turned, hope and fear mingling in his expression. Yeah, but we're going to couples therapy. Because what you did, even if it was innocent, broke something. The secret keeping, the separate life, the not trusting me enough to include me. I moved closer. We need to learn how to be fully honest with each other, even when it's uncomfortable. David nodded, tears streaming down his face. Whatever it takes. I love you, Maya. I never want you to doubt that again. I let him hold me then, breathing in his familiar scent, feeling his heartbeat against my cheek. The betrayal I'd felt wasn't about another woman. It was about the space he'd created that didn't include me, the parts of himself he'd kept hidden. Trust, I realized, wasn't about never having secrets. It was about choosing, every day, to build a life transparent enough that secrets had nowhere to hide. 3 months later, Emily's brother took his first steps with a walker. David and I were there to see it. Together, no secrets between us. The therapy was hard, painful work, but we were doing it. Our marriage hadn't broken, but it had cracked, and in the repair, we were building something stronger than before, a relationship where honesty meant more than just speaking truth, but creating the safety for truth to be spoken. Some nights, I still thought about those days of surveillance, the sick feeling in my stomach, the certainty that my marriage was over. But those memories served a purpose now. They reminded me that love without trust was just a word, and trust without transparency was just hope. We were building something better, something real. And that, I thought, watching David laugh at something Emily's brother said, was worth fighting for.